Welcome to an introduction to the foundational database services that are available on AWS. AWS solutions typically fall into one of two categories: unmanaged or managed. Unmanaged services are typically provisioned in discrete portions as specified by users. As the owner of the service, you manage how the service responds to changes in load, errors, and situations where resources become unavailable. If you want to maintain complete control of your database, you can install a relational database management system on an Amazon EC2 instance. This will be very similar to running your database in a physical data center that you own and will be an example of an unmanaged service. Say that you launch a web server on an EC2 instance. Because Amazon EC2 is an unmanaged solution, that web server will not scale to handle increased traffic load or replace unhealthy instances with healthy ones unless you specify that it use a scaling solution. It could be the auto-scaling service that you use. The benefit of using an unmanaged service is that you have a more fine-tuned control over how your solution handles changes in load, errors, and situations where resources become unavailable. There is also some configuration for managed services. For example, you can create an S3 bucket and then set permissions for it. However, managed services typically require less configuration. Now we will look at the challenges of running an unmanaged standalone relational database. Then you will learn how Amazon RDS addresses these challenges. When you run your own relational database, you are responsible for several administrative tasks, such as server maintenance, energy footprint, software installation and patching, and database backups. You're also responsible for ensuring high availability, planning for scalability, data security, and operating system installation and patching. All these tasks take resources from other items on your to-do list and require expertise. To address the challenges of running an unmanaged standalone relational database, AWS provides RDS, a service that sets up, operates, and scales relational databases without any ongoing administration. With Amazon RDS, your primary focus is your data on optimizing your application. With Amazon RDS, you manage your application optimization. AWS manages installing and patching the operating system, installing and patching the database software, automatic backups, and high availability. AWS also scales resources, manages powers and servers, and performs maintenance. Offloading these operations to the managed Amazon RDS service reduces your operational workload and the costs that are associated with your relational database. Let's take a closer look at the details of RDS. The basic building blocks of the Amazon RDS is the database instance. A database instance is an isolated database environment that you can contain multiple user-created databases. You can access your databases using the same tools and applications that you use with a standalone database instance. When setting up your database, you pick an instance class and the type of storage you need for your database. Database instances and storage differ in performance characteristics and price. This enables you to customize your performance and cost to the needs of your business. When you choose to create a database instance, you specify which database engine to run. Amazon RDS supports 6 database engines: MySQL, Amazon Aurora, Microsoft SQL Server, PostgreSQL, MariaDB, and Oracle. There are many different ways to configure your RDS implementation. For example, you can run an instance in an Amazon VPC. When you use a VPC, you have control over your virtual networking environment. You can select your own IP address range, create subnets, and configure routing and access control lists to control access to your database. The basic functionality of Amazon RDS is the same whether or not you run it in a VPC. Usually, the database instance is isolated in a private subnet, and it's only made directly accessible to the applications that you choose. One of the most powerful features of Amazon RDS is the ability to configure your database instance for high availability with a multi-AZ deployment. When you configure a multi-AZ deployment, Amazon RDS automatically generates a standby copy of the database instance in another availability zone within the same VPC. After sealing the database copy, transactions are synchronously replicated to the standby copy. Running a database instance in a multi-AZ deployment can enhance availability during planned system maintenance, and it can help protect your database instance if there's ever a disruption within the availability zone. If the main database instance fails in a multi-AZ deployment, Amazon RDS automatically brings the standby database instance online as the new main instance. The synchronous replication minimizes the potential for data loss. Because your application references the database by name by using the DNS domain endpoint, you don't need to change anything in your application code to use the standby copy for failover. Amazon RDS also supports the creation of read replicas for MySQL, MariaDB, PostgreSQL, and Amazon Aurora. Updates that are made to the source database instance are asynchronously copied to the read replica instance. You can reduce the load on your source database instance by routing read queries from your applications to the read replica. This is a configuration that you will choose if you have an application with a high number of read operations. Amazon RDS is a great solution for many types of database scenarios, but some of the more common use cases include web and mobile applications that need a database with a high throughput, massive storage scalability, and high availability. Here are some common requirements that will indicate that RDS is the right solution for you. Do you need to support complex transactions or complex queries? Do you have a medium to high query or write rate, up to 30,000 input outputs per second? You don't need more than a single worker, node, or shard. Some of the requirements that might mean RDS is not the best solution for you include You need massive read writes, for example, 150,000 writes per second. You have really large data sets or throughput demands, or you have very simple get or put requests and queries that might be better suited for a NoSQL database. If Amazon RDS is not a good candidate for your requirements, you should consider one of the other database services such as Amazon Aurora or Amazon DynamoDB, which we'll review in other videos in this series. When you begin to estimate the cost of Amazon RDS, consider the clock hours of service time. You are billed based on the amount of time your service is running. The physical capacity of the database you choose will also affect how you are charged. Database engine, instance size, and memory class will impact the cost running your database RDS instance. Database purchase type also has an impact on your cost. When you use on-demand instances, you pay for compute capacity for each hour that your database instance runs. There's no minimum requirements or commitments. You can also select reserve instances. With reserve instances, you make a one-time upfront payment for each database instance that you want to reserve for a 1 year or a 3 year term. The number of instances you create will also impact your cost. For example, you might want to provision multiple database instances to handle peak loads. Selecting the best storage configuration is another factor that will impact the cost of running your RDS implementation. There is no additional charge for backup storage of up to 100% of your provisioned database storage for an active database instance. After the database instance is terminated, backup storage is billed per gigabyte per month. Finally, consider the number of input-output requests that will be made to the database, as well as any data transfers. Inbound data transfer is free, and outbound data transfer costs are tiered. Depending on the needs of your application, you might be able to optimize your cost by purchasing reserved instances. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.